Hello, hello, freedom
Okay,
fighters.
hello. Hey, freedom fighters, welcome to the show. And I've got Belinda joining me today. Welcome, Belinda.
Fabulous, fabulous. Love it, love it, love it. Good to see you, George. How's Bali treating you?
And yes, I I feel like there's a little bit of delay. I don't know if it's my
There
internet
is
or yours.
there's a
It's
tiny
mine.
bit.
It's my internet. So you're saying how's Bali? Well, the internet is a little bit slow where I'm staying at the moment, but otherwise it's good. Now
Fabulous,
we're going to talk
fabulous.
about how to get $80,000 worth of tax deduction, which is great. So
Yeah.
let's zoom in and
So
talk about the philosophy of this, right?
taxi.
Because
When people hear tax,
yeah,
it's not a nice thing. But one thing we're sure of is death and taxes, right? So
yeah, there's two things. That's right, exactly. Death and taxes. And the thing is, your biggest expense in your life from when you start work until you retire is tax. Even now, after you retire, you're paying GFC and paying all this other stuff and everything else like that, right?
and they,
So the
and
thing is,
it's not only just wait a sec, it's not just paying tax, it's every time you shop and buy something. Petrol and this and that. It's
well,
like
petrol's got extra tax. You have alcohol. If you
Nick,
have cigarettes,
Nick,
um,
Nick,
then you buy a
Nick,
house, you sell a house, you make
Nick.
money. There's tax going on everywhere. So the one thing that the wealthy investors do better than the struggling investors or the people that struggle and don't invest is they're much better with their tax,
That's right.
right? That's one
100%.
of the key distinctions. And if you only do this one thing properly, you're going to be ahead of 90% of investors. That's why it's really important that I explain this to people, because this is truly a game changer. And I must
Absolutely.
say, what happened was when I first started investing, I made the normal mistakes. I had the wrong structure. I was getting some of the wrong properties, some of the right properties, but they were cost me 300, 400 bucks a week, right? Because I
Yeah.
didn't understand how to actually use depreciation and how to actually get tax deductions.
Absolutely.
Because I
We're
thought,
not taught this stuff in schools,
we're not exactly, and you don't get taught this. And I'm going to be teaching you tonight how this works. So
See, bring it on.
there's two types of tax deductions. There's tax deductions on real money,
Yep.
right? So, for example, let's say you work and you need a car for work. You can actually get a car and lease it and pay a monthly fee. And what happens is that fee that you're paying every month for the car is a tax deduction because you're losing that money,
Yeah, right.
right?
Are we taking notes, kids? We get our little pens out. Let's take some
That's right.
notes.
That's right.
Quick
So
form.
that's one way. Now, there's a different way you can get tax deductions as well, which is little or unknown, right? So to the untrained person, you think, let's spend money to get a tax deduction. But see, this is where it's problematic. Let's say you're getting between 30 to 50% tax back. If you're spending $1,000, you're only getting half or 30% of that back. So yes, that's great if you have to spend it already. But spending money and losing money in order to get a tax deduction actually doesn't make sense, because
Yeah.
you're literally losing money to try to gain a little bit more money. It doesn't make
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, absolutely.
So the fascinating thing is what the savvy, wealthy people know is they know that you can actually legally lose money on paper and not in real life,
Mm,
right? And that is the way to
that's
really do it. So on paper, you can have a paper loss that's not real,
yeah.
and then you can use that paper loss as a tax deduction, right? So literally, if you get the right property, the right structure, you can literally write yourself a check of a refund. So what you can do is you can get on paper get $80,000 loss over 10 years,
Yep.
and each year you can draw down that and get money from the government
Fabulous.
come back to you, right? So what I
So
might do is, yep, keep going,
yeah, I
go.
was going to say, look, sometimes like as you were saying, to the untrained kind of mind, when you kind of say this, my head's going. I mean, I get it, but when I first started investing, it's really hard to get your head around it. But once you really get it and you get that penny drop moment, it's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's great. And look,
life
this
and
is
into your investing and things like that. Absolutely.
yeah. A lot of people might be thinking, well, is it legal? Is it safe? And look, it's totally legal because basically the tax ATO have created all these rules for a reason to encourage you to do certain things,
Mm,
right? And to make it easier. So the reason you get great tax deductions in having a property is because we've got a housing crisis. And the government can't actually house people. Out of all the houses up for rent, you know how many the government provides? 4%.
wow.
So they leave it up to us investors to get the other 96% of houses. And unless you've been living on a rock, you probably see there's a rental crisis. And
Yeah.
it's very hard for people to get rental properties. And we're about to have an immigration boom. So that's going to make it even worse. So because of that, you know, the government's keeping incentives in place. So what they're doing is they're saying, look, if you invest in property, we're going to give you an incentive and give you tax back. Now, unfortunately, most people don't know how to use this and they get the wrong property. So what people do is they go, great, I'm going to negative gear. And they get a property, they negative gear it, and they lose hundreds or thousands a week on this property. And
Yeah.
really what they're doing is losing money to try to lose money.
Yes.
They're not getting it right. So what happens is, people have got a stigma about negative gearing, positive gearing, and things like that, right?
Absolutely.
And my philosophy is what you want to do is you want to have negative gearing, positive cash flow. Now that is the
Mm.
sweet spot. So, remember the little thing about the little girl and she goes in because, she goes into the three bears house and
Yeah.
the first bed is too hard because it's negative gearing and it's costing too much money, right?
It's too
Then she goes to
hard.
the second bed, it's too soft, it's
Soft.
positive geared and it's out in the middle of nowhere, not getting any capital growth. But then the
Yes.
third bed, they've used the Markowski method to structure it the right way. And what they've done is they're losing money on paper, but making money in real life.
Perfect.
And
And
that
it's just right.
is just right. So what you do is you use negative gearing to increase your cash flow, but you don't necessarily want to lose money as you go along. Now, with today's interest rates, it's going to cost you around about $100 a week to own a property.
Yeah.
And when you look at how high rents are going, that will only last 12 months and then it's going to be better. So,
Yes.
yeah. And so that means that what you can really do, and this is what I've seen people do, you can actually imagine this: you get $80,000, you invested
Yep.
in a property, right? That property gets you $100,000. You made 100% return the first 12 months. And instead of actually making a profit because you didn't realize it on paper, you actually use depreciation and you lost money on the deal on paper and get a fat check back from the government, even though you've made a lot of money.
Creative but legal. We
That's
love
right,
it.
exactly. So there you go. So that is how you can get $80,000 depreciation
Yeah, absolutely.
and get that
I
money
know
back.
I know a long time ago, like, well, in the last, 15 years, negative gearing was like the big talk of, that was the
Yeah.
way to do it. But it's not sustainable long term.
No, you've got to be very careful. You've got to be very selective what your negative gear and how you do it. Because really, to be able to hold a property, because cash flow is king, not cash. So to be able to hold a property, what you need to do is one, you get to get the right property. Two,
Yeah,
you got to get the right structure. You got to get the right amount of return. Because too high, too little return is not going to serve you. Because if it's
yeah,
too little return, you're going to be too negative, and being
correct.
negative is negative. If it's too positive, then means that you're not going to get capital growth. Because as the return becomes more positive, your capital growth goes down. And I'll tell you why. Because people that are selling a house, um, they have to keep reducing the price because it's no good. And that's why you get a better return. And that's not what you want. You don't want to get a bargain. You want to get something that's actually sought after and popular.
Correct. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So what I was going to do is catch everyone up on the news now. And if anyone's got any questions, please type in the chat. I'm going to catch you up on the news
That's
and share
right.
my
Make
screen.
sure you jump into the chat, guys. It's your opportunity to ask any questions to the man himself. And let's talk about what's been going on.
Yeah, okay. So let's talk about what's going on. Don't you love that photo?
Love
Great
it.
picture. Okay. The major bank, RBA to cut in November. Goldman Sachs predict the Reserve Bank of Australia will begin a modest easing cycle in November due to rising unemployment and weaker than expected inflation. Despite ongoing growth in the labour market, private sector challenges, limited effects for new energy rebate contribute to this outlook. Isn't that interesting?
That's great. Do you want to put that
Yes,
on full screen for us?
if I
Slideshow
can.
up the top.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. Beautiful.
How's that? Is that better?
Wonderful. Love
Great.
it.
Yeah. So they reckon only one RBA interest rate hawk remains, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Love
So
it.
only one person reckons they might go up one more time. Everyone else says it's going to go down. Now, this is the interesting thing. I'll tell you why November is such a special time. The RBA gets together on the first Tuesday of every month. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I think it's a Tuesday
Ha.
or a Monday, right? But it's normally around the 4th to 5th of November, because I
Yep.
know that for one reason, two reasons. One, 5th of November is my birthday, and normally I think it's the 4th of November that the Melbourne Cup is on, 4th to 5th.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Now, during the
And
Melbourne
also,
Cup,
and also, see you next Tuesday.
yes. So the Melbourne Cup really is the race that stops the nation. Everyone stops.
Absolutely.
And because of that, everyone's sort of listening to media and everyone's ears are to the ground listening to the RBA. I don't know if you look back, but usually when the RBA does something in November, everyone knows because of that. And during other months, there's nothing that special going on and people can miss it.
Yeah.
So November is also followed by December. Well, we know that. But what's significant about that is in December is when people buy Christmas shopping.
Yeah.
So the RBA,
The consumer index.
so what the RBA want is they want people feeling good about spending lots of money in December, because a
Absolutely.
lot of retail organizations are hanging out for that December push to keep them in business and keep things happening. So you look at all those things together, and it's really a recipe for the RBA to drop rates in November to look good. The whole of Australia is watching them, and then people can spend their merry way to Christmas, and the economy can get kick-started again and go up.
Started again. Absolutely. Scott just brought a question in. I wonder if we can bring that in. I can't seem to bring it in on mine, but do you
Yep.
want me to read it out?
Yeah, read it out.
Here we go, Noe. Yeah, as a country, we've had 4 or 5 periods of negative growth. So doesn't this mean we're technically in a recession?
Good question. I don't know. I'm not an expert on that. However, the RBA still think that our inflation's too high, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to reduce it. But that would say we're in a recession. But when you think about it, I mean, things are going very well in Australia. It's definitely not a recession, regardless of the periods of what's happening, because property
What
prices have gone up, people's wages have gone up. It's gone
tax is
gangbusters.
coming
The
down a
economy,
bit?
the economy is very robust and very strong. Also, we're going through a commodity boom at the moment that people don't realize, the one that no one's talking about. What's
Yeah, right.
happening is gold has gone up, copper's gone up, iron ore's gone up, steel's gone up. Everything that Australia exports, we are going to be super rich as a country
Correct.
in this next 5 or 10 years. It's crazy
For
rich.
sure.
So look what happened in the last mining boom. Property price went pretty crazy, didn't they? Last mining boom.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I
So
mean,
this is going
you
to
say
happen as well.
technically in a recession, you've got to compare what we were going through in the last few recessions. We're nowhere near where we were.
Yeah. No. Look, the economy is going well. It's going very well. So there you go.
Someone's just written, Nick, there's murmurs of the federal election in either November, December, so no rate cuts until 2024.
Ah, right.
I always,
Nick, look,
I've actually heard this one as well. Usually, when they're election time, that's when they start, you know,
yes. No, no.
dropping.
What they do is the politicians put lots of pressure on the RBA to hold off until the election, because think about it. You're just about to go on election. The rates drop. Everyone's like, oh, thank God. They're going to go, Albo, you saved us. You're so awesome. Oh my God.
Yeah,
Right? When Albo's
fantastic.
not out there trying to put the voice in Parliament and different things, he's going around reducing rates or something, isn't he? So we'll see what
Exactly,
happens.
exactly.
Look, it'd be interesting to see. Thanks for contributing, Nick. Nick, he always knows what's going on. He lives in Canberra, and he just got
Yep,
his finger on the pulse. So I should really
yep.
consult Nick before I start these sessions, and just talk to him, right?
We
Because
need
he
to get
just
Nick
knows
on
his
one.
stuff.
We need to get Nick on one of these stuff. Absolutely. Um, Scott just sent through another question, or maybe a statement, I should say. But if we can bring that through, the inflation has been externally stimulated by significant immigration, which has put external pressures on rentals. Bonus for landlords, but immigration is about to be cut. About to be
Yeah,
cut.
look, it'd be interesting to see what happens with immigration. I think there's too much immigration, so cutting immigration is probably going to be a good thing because we
Yep.
just can't handle building another Perth in the next 5 years. That's how many people are supposed to come here, 1.5 million people. The what the original inflation we had was actually supply chain inflation. So it wasn't intrinsic to anything. It was actually supply chain. So during COVID, ships stopped moving things backwards, forwards, and that's what caused a lot less supply but more demand. It was artificially created through COVID and government policies. So it wasn't real, but it took off and just kept going and going and going. Now, interesting that materials and goods went up, but services didn't actually follow. So, for
Yep.
example, 10 years ago, you paid 75 for a massage, same price now.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
services haven't actually gone up, which is interesting. Chiropractor, same price. But if you're buying a property, you're paying a lot more, building materials, all that sort of stuff.
Absolutely. He
Yeah.
just said not all resources are going well. China is sitting on a significant stockpile of iron ore, etc.
Yeah, look, China's not our only buyer, but the fact of it is, if you look at a trade balance, it's actually the best it's ever been. So
Yeah,
I would say resource doing very well at the moment, especially because of the commodity boom. And what happens is when there's inflation in the world, commodities go up. What they're doing, they're actually opening up mines that were closed for business.
yeah.
So what happens in Australia is, you got a copper mine and copper price go down. You close the mine because it's not profitable. But suddenly the price go up. You open the mine again and start digging and sending out copper.
Open.
Exactly.
Restaurant open. Closed. Restaurant open.
That's right.
Let's get
Exactly. And that's what happens, right? And now they're opening up all these mines. When they open up mines, people get jobs. They get paid good money, right? And then
exactly.
that trickles in the economy and builds it even more. So
Absolutely.
it's pretty amazing. But when you look at Australia after COVID, we became the richest country in the world,
Yeah.
and you look at our property market, very strong,
Yep.
especially compared to Italy, where you can buy a property for $2.
Yep. And
So
we've got a couple of minutes left. Have we got more of those? We're kind of digressing from the whole tax scenario. Should we get back onto the slide for the
yeah,
last
so
couple of minutes?
so the, okay, let's talk about tax. So basically, the way to do this is what you want to do is you want to buy a brand new property because then you get all your tax deductions. So
Yeah.
if you buy a property worth around $500,000, you're going to get around about $80,000 depreciation over 10 years.
Woohoo.
Not depreciation. Depreciation means that the government's saying that the property is going down in value. So therefore, you can depreciate it as a loss because you're running your investment portfolio like a business. That's what negative gearing is. So negative gearing is treating housing investment as a business because that's what it is. And
Yep.
therefore, if you lose money, you can get a tax deduction. That's why it's like that. That's why you can't get any tax deduction on owner occupier because it's not a business. You live in the house. So therefore, it's an owner occupier. So that's the difference. Now, this 80,000 tax deduction, there's two parts of it. One is you've got the fixtures and fittings, and then you've got the building. So the building, right? They estimate the building goes down, but the fixtures and fittings go down quicker. So, for example, if you've got a dishwasher, in 10 years, that dishwasher is not going to be the same price. It's going to
Absolutely.
go down in value. You might have to actually replace it in 10 years' time. So, therefore,
Yep.
you get depreciated quicker. Now, this is the interesting thing about building depreciation, right? So what you're doing is you can depreciate the building, and I think it's over 20 or 40 years. But the first
Yeah.
10 years, what's significant after that doesn't matter because you're making
Yeah.
so much money, it won't make any difference. But the
Correct.
thing is, at the moment, building costs and going up, right? Actually, buildings cost more to build in a year's time than now. What does that actually mean? I'll tell you what it means. It means that your building, the actual house, is actually going up in value. So currently in Australia, the land is going up. So is the house on the land. Because if you can build a house now for 250,000, then in a year's time it's going to cost you 300 to build. Guess what's happened? Your house just gone up 50 grand, but the land's also gone up as well on top of that. So we've got a double dip on the growth,
Double
which is pretty
whammy.
exciting. Yes.
Absolutely.
Adam's saying
100%.
here in Vic, we're paying an extra 30% for COVID lockdowns on our land tax. Yes. Look, a lot of investors are leaving Melbourne and leaving Victoria because
There's been a lot on the media here, George, because
yeah,
see, I live in Melbourne, and I try not to watch too much normal TV, but it sometimes goes on, and the news are really hitting it home with not buying in Victoria, getting out of the
yeah.
state.
So look, one thing I've got to say about Victoria before we close, because we're going to go to our next session.
We
But
sure do. We could keep
Victoria
going, but
have just turned into a communist state, right?
yeah, and
They're
it
in
looks
massive
like
debt. They just
our
destroyed the
ex-premier.
economy, locked everyone down, destroyed people's livelihoods, and now they're trying to make money out of all the investors that are providing housing for everyone. It's
It's just
ridiculous,
nuts.
right?
So
They're
nuts.
going down a one-way street and it's just shocking. But anyway,
And our
that's
ex,
how you can get
and by the
paid.
way, and the news is our ex-premier is getting like the full Medal of Honor for
Yeah,
what is that?
for locking everyone down. Yeah, nice work. Anyway, so here's the deal. If you do it right, what you can do, you can invest in the right property, you get depreciation, and you can actually increase your cash flow, and you can lose money on paper and losing it in real life, and therefore make lots of money. So that's awesome. We actually have to go. So
Yes,
what we're going to do is say goodbye to everyone. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us.
these times
And
go very quick
oh,
because there's so
exactly, it
much
does.
good stuff.
Actually, let me just open my curtain because I'm here in
Ah,
Bali.
you have to, absolutely, absolutely.
Can you
Oh,
see
that
that
looks
from
lovely.
over there? Yeah,
Okay, it's a
this is
little
my
bit
office. This is
jealous
my
factor
office.
here.
This is my
Jealous
office
factor.
currently. Is that camera following me?
Yes, no, it's not,
No,
but
it's not. It's not. Oh well. Anyway,
a lovely
I
view.
thought I'd show you that because it's a beautiful office. Escape the winter. Thank you, everyone. And
Thank you.
we're
We
going
had
to
a
go to
few
our private
comments
group.
come through. It's a community for sure. Thank you very much, Claudio. And let's get on to our members only, and let's keep going and rolling with this. Well done, guys.
Okay.
We'll see you
Bye bye.
next week.